Hello, everybody. Welcome to my lecture. Today, the philosopher king of Plato in Republic. The beautiful picture is about the School of Athens by Raphael. Lecture A, the philosopher king of Plato in Republic. In the lecture 7, we investigated Plato's criticism of Protagoras' relativism in the dialogue Theaetetus. Herein Protagoras' relativism is related to the Flux-Theory of Heracleitus. The answer to what is knowledge was not solved in the epistemology of the Theaetetus, which approached the problem subjectively, that is, from the point of the subject, my perception, my judgment, and my reason. Meanwhile, I alluded to the possibility of the knowledge problem through Parmenidean Being. Plato's Republic is the self-assertion and independence declaration of his philosophy, while Plato has overcome the challenge and the many difficulties of philosophy through mainly Theaetetus dialogue. The role of Socrates in dialogue is changed. Socrates in Republic refers evidently to Plato himself, while Socrates in the previous dialogue referred to the mixture of Socrates and Plato. Another difference is that the main interlocutor Socrates mentioned primarily the problem of state and the politics in Republic, while previously he dealt with the ethics and the morality as value of individual. Plato's brothers at length appear on the scene, and they discussed with Socrates the reform of society and the state passionately. From this standpoint, Plato's interest is believed to be practical and socially reformative. He wanted the reform of the whole nation and investigated how to establish the ideal state. He devoted himself really to the ideal. He attempted to participate in the reform of the state of Syracuse, Sicily, with the king Dionysius II of Syracuse, who was supposed to become the archetypal philosopher king of Plato. In the Republic, the story about a nation's organization, people's virtues, governance, and education is definitely and systematically developed around the ideal doctrine. The opponents of Plato, sophists, were, however, advocating the relativism of values in addition to sale of their professional skills. For example, the greatest sophist of his time, Protagoras, said, "Man is the measure of everything." This meant that my interest or understanding was the standard of value, truth, or righteousness. To put it simply, sophists were teaching and selling the way of argument like, what I do is always right. This logic was applied especially in the court of justice. In other words, it is like a lawyer's logic that his client is absolutely right. The lawyer's mind of saying you can win the trial to get money corresponds to the sophist doctrine of man-measured statement. A famous sophist at that time is said to have made an exaggerated advertisement that anyone who learned the skill of defense from him would never lose the trial. He also said that if a graduate of his loses trial, he will refund all tuition fees. Another sophist distorted the concept of justice, saying that justice is a social system in which strong men benefit themselves. Thrasymachus said, justice is nothing but the advantage of the stronger. This is far from fairness or justice, but the sophist, a merchant of knowledge, made this claim publicly. In this way, sophists openly cried out for the axiology of the relativism, further confusing society at that time. It was Socrates' role to destroy such ostentatious relativism. This was covered in the 6th lecture of mine. Plato was tried to establish the right concept of the value in this context. But in order not to fall behind the sophist, Plato had to be able to prove the objectivity of value. But even in modern times, the essence of value concept is very difficult. These things are naturalistic fallacy in modern philosophy. Naturalistic fallacy is an attempt to derive value from fact. For example, man desires to be rich, therefore man should try to be rich. This kind of argument is named naturalistic fallacy. Agora in ancient Greek, a very beautiful architecture in ancient Greek. Plato's Republic deals with the composition of the state and the various kinds of occupation from chapter 1 to 5 in the Republic. The state is divided into three classes. The first is ruling classes, guardians. The second is military classes. And the third is the production class, farmer, craftsman, and merchant. And each class has its own virtue according to its job. The virtue of the first is the wisdom of recognizing the form, idea, ethos. The virtue of the second is the courage, and that of the third is the temperance. And the justice is that these three classes in the virtue balance each other. Justice, wisdom, courage, and temperance are called Plato's four main virtues. Plato, however, make a rather abrupt argument that the ruling class, also known as guardians, should know the philosophy. It is the idea of so-called the philosopher king. The philosopher that Plato speaks of is someone who has the knowledge of the forms. Socrates, the speaker of the book, says, they, philosophers, are not swayed by creation and extinction and are always enthusiastic about the learning that can offer solid reality. And they are people who love all the real things. Plato text. Here, the philosophers are those who are aware of the science of forms. The essence of form is the same as the being of Parmenides. It is the philosopher who knows the form or being that exists in the world of noumenon, outside the phenomenal world, such as creation and extinction. Such a man need not indulge in worldly desires or selfish greed, because he is the one who has the best being, the form of good or beauty. Therefore, a ruler should be a philosopher. Otherwise, the nation cannot escape disaster due to the corruption of its leaders. Also, the ruler must be patriotic. It must be proved that those who will be rulers are patriots who have been honed in various pleasures and pains. This part can be understood well by looking at the reality of Korea. In other words, how many hardships have the people suffered because of the wrongdoing of the current ruling party with the ruler, who are in power solely through cunning political strategy. The great disaster of the current coronavirus infection had killed many innocent people, mainly thanks to the collective selfishness of a ruling party and its leader. Our first task then, we take it, is to mold the mother of happy states. We are not isolating a small class in it and postulating their happinesses, but that of the city as a whole. So Plato says, unless the philosophers become king, there can be no cessation of troubles for our states, nor for the human race either. So there must be a conjunction of these two things, political power and philosophical intelligence. Plato text again. Plato's philosopher referred to a man whose soul recognizes beauty in itself and is able to distinguish that self of beautiful and the things that participate in it. Beauty in itself, or beauty itself, is called form. That is, the form of beautiful things. According to Plato, beautiful things, including beautiful women, are beautiful because the latter imitates the former, or the latter participates in the former. The form of the beauty can be interpreted as the common element among the beautiful things. Look at the picture. The beauty one participates in the form of beauty. Beauty two also participates in the form of beauty. Beauty three also participate in the form of beauty. The nature of beauty itself is, however, almost impossible to define univocally. Balance, harmony, individuality, liveliness, attraction, etc. In spite of the difficulty of the concept beauty, we always need to talk about the beauty itself. What is so said and learned exists in agreement with Parmenides and Plato. Different from the visible, beautiful things, the beauty itself is said to be invisible, intelligible. From this viewpoint, the form of Plato suggests the being of the Parmenized, as we discussed in the lecture 2. Parmenized being is a constant and intelligible being, and the souls are one. In contrast to Parmenidean being, that is one single being, Plato's form, idea, eidos is plural. It is said to be forms of beauty, good, and justice. Plato is pluralist. Plato's form theory is interested prominently in matters of value and morals. Marriage of Parmenides and Heracleitus by Plato. Plato's form theory, however, depends not only on the Parmenidean being, but also on the Flux-Theory of Heracleitus. Parmenides also knew the necessity of the world of becoming and change. However, he could not accept the world of universal change. Therefore, he described the world of change as the way of opinion, that is, appearance, as opposed to the way of truth or conviction. Parmenides was not able to connect the form with the latter. Consequently, two words was only juxtaposed. Plato attempts to link the two worlds in the Republic while he identified the way of opinion, appearance, with the flux world of the Heracleitus. This is, however, problematic. In this way, Plato marries Parmenides with Heracleitus. He wants to combine the world of being with that of becoming. However, Plato elaborates the synthesis of being and becoming more deliberately. The world of the sensible is again divided into two parts, imagination and perception. The world of the intelligible is divided into reasoning and philosophical speculation. This trial appears also in the analysis of the divided line. The divided line AC is generally taken as representing the visible world, and CE, this part, as representing the intelligible world. Source, Wikipedia, analysis of the divided lines. Second, type of knowledge or opinion, DE, Noesis, CD, Dianoia, BC, Pistis, AB, Acacia. Affection of the psyche, knowledge, understanding of only the intelligible, Noeton. This knowledge sought that recognizes but is not only the intelligible. Pistis corresponds opinion, belief concerning visible things. Acacia refers to opinion or imagination. Conjectures concerning likeness. With this detailed analysis of and the synthesis of previous research, Plato constructs the kingdom of philosophy and designs the ideal state which rests on the philosopher and the philosopher king. However, this marriage of the heterogeneous elements is to cause a lot of philosophical difficulties. So far, so good. Thank you very much for your listening to my lecture. See you again.